Welcome back, boys. Today we have one from The Diary of a CEO. Warning, why 60% of men give up on women. Let's hear what they have to say.
What have you seen happening between men and women right now?
Women, I think, don't need men as
Okay.
much as they used to. And I think this is in part because of this whole sexual revolution and the pill and feminism and all these things, which has tremendous upsides. I think that women and men are having less sex, they're getting married less. Men's attitude towards women has become a little bit more resentful in certain pockets of the internet. They perceive relationships with the other sex to be disposable more than ever before.
Men view women.
I would say both. And I think in
Okay.
part that's because of dating apps, just the perception of choice.
Okay.
The feeling that if you don't work out, there's another 1,000 people on my phone that I could give a shot to. I think the equation of a relationship, when we think about the investment it takes for it to work and what you get from it, people now perceive the equation not to be worth it.
Okay. I think there's a lot of great stuff there. So you're like a fully formed adult man, right?
I think so. I hope
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Like you're like a man. You're not like a kid. You're not like a dude in early stages of development. You've got a career, you've got a relationship, you're buying a house. Like you are an adult.
Yeah.
So if I was an 18-year-old
Yeah.
and I came to you, and let's say I'm your nephew or something like that, and I'm like, Steven, fully formed adult, handsome man in relationship, I'm struggling to date.
Yeah.
What should I do?
You want me to give you advice? Yeah. Fuck. I think you should work on yourself.
Okay.
Especially as an 18-year-old man, because I think you need to, especially at that age, create some advantages. And so working on yourself could be learning, reading, going to the gym, building up the ability to provide for someone else and to protect somebody else. That's kind of really where I'd start. And again, that's biased because that's what I did at 18 years old.
Great.
I actually didn't date. I think I've been on 5 dates in my entire life.
Okay. So let's say I do that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm like, hey, I'm on this growth journey, and I'm sure you've encountered this, and there are going to be people in the audience who are like, the reason they're watching this podcast is because they're trying to do that. They're still not getting dates, right?
Yeah.
It's still hard to find a girlfriend. Then what do you have to say to them?
I would assume that the reason it's not working is because they're not in this frame of mind to find love.
And when a dude says, I'm trying to do everything right, what is the most common response that they get, right? So like,
try harder or like...
Yeah, right? If you kind of like look at Twitter, what you'll find is people will be like, it's impossible to find a good woman. And then like men will be, let's say a dude says that, or a woman says that, it's on both sides. It's impossible to find a good man. And then people won't be like, yeah, it's impossible to find a good man. So maybe some people will be supportive. So you'll have a woman who says it's impossible to find a good man. You know, there are a lot of people who are like, yeah, like men are trash, fine. And then a lot of people will be like, you're not trying hard enough. You're not going to the right places. We as men get that a lot more because there's a societal bias that men don't need help, right? So if you look at like the comparison of scholarships, male-only scholarships versus female-only scholarships, there's about $4.9 billion worth of scholarships given out in the United States from private sources. Female scholarships outside of athletics are way higher than male scholarships. So if you look at athletics, the number is way higher for men. But the really weird thing is that like 60% of people who graduate from college or in college somewhere in there are women. So the people who need more gender-based support are men, but we don't really do that. We're usually like, if a man has a problem, this is a man's problem to solve. And when a man goes out and says, I'm having trouble dating, what people will say is men will say, work harder, try harder. You know, people will and people will really be nasty about it. They're like, do you not know how to talk to women? Stop being a creep, things like that. And then the other thing that we're really seeing is that there is like this very, very like deep anger, entitlement. There's like this incel movement. There's this like alpha male, beta male kind of thing. And I don't know if you kind of get this, but there's like a deep sense of like anger, right? There's like in men, and I think women feel it too. This is why women are so terrified. This whole thing about, would you rather be in a forest with a bear or a man? Did you hear about this? No. So like people would ask this question on Twitter to women. It's like, would you rather be in a forest with like a bear or a man? And like women feel safer with a wild bear than they do with a man. So I think people are picking up on this like existential
Pick the bear or the man. It's such a stupid question.
And I don't know if that makes sense to you, but there's like an existential like cry coming from men, which can manifest as anger. I think we're also seeing reflections of this like in South Korea with like dropping birth rates, right? Where like men are getting really, really angry. They feel really entitled. And I think this is where it's important to understand a biological difference. And we'll get to what I think is going on. So a woman does not need a man in order to pass her genes along, right? So I mean, like literally, I know it sounds weird, but like if you're a woman, you can just go to a sperm bank and you can get pregnant.
Yeah.
You can just have a child without. You can also argue that it's easier for women to find a man who is willing to impregnate them than it is for a man to find a woman willing to carry their child. But I mean, literally, we live in a society where women can just procreate if they feel like it, and men cannot. So there's a fundamental power balance there. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it is what it is. So I think what we're starting to see is actually like a mass extinction event. We are seeing natural selection for a group of men who have no options. Many years ago, I was a loser, and the world that we lived in necessitated my entry into third spaces. I had trouble talking to girls, but I was forced into college. When I got my first job, it was serving ice cream. I was forced to interact with girls. I was active in a summer camp where I met girls, was forced to talk to girls. So I sucked at talking to girls, but the world that I lived in was structured so that I still had to talk to girls. I had no option to retreat from interaction and painful interaction with the opposite sex. I think literally what we're seeing, because all this stuff started to get really bad during COVID. So what happened in COVID was actually like a natural selection event, but it wasn't a natural selection event about life and death. That's what people think natural selection is. What happened during COVID, sure, a lot of people died and that's bad. But the post-COVID world, some people were able to adapt to it and some people are not. We're seeing a spike in social anxiety. Now I can work from home. Now I have pornography. Now I have all this stuff going on to where I'm not forced to learn how to interact with women. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
So now you can live your whole life at home. And I think what's starting to happen is literally natural selection. And the way that natural selection works is people think it's like, oh, if natural selection means I'm weak and someone is strong. That's not technically correct. Natural selection is you were made a certain way, someone else is made a different way, and then the environment changes. Which one of these two is suited to, it's not even adaptation because all the adaptations have been made. And I think the best example of this is like literally Darwin's finches. So you've got like, one finch that has like a hard beak that can crack a nut. You've got another finch that has a very sharp beak that can get like a bug out of like a cactus, like that has these very like tight flowers. And so if something happens and all the cacti die out, the birds that rely on the cacti bugs will start to die out too. They don't know how to procreate in this world anymore. And I think what we're seeing with like all these alphas, betas, incels, what we're seeing in South Korea is there is a whole generation of men that is like, we are literally watching them die out in real time because we've got 32-year-olds, 35-year-olds who do not have children, do not know how they're going to ever have children. And this is where, like, I know this sounds bizarre, but so that's actually happening. That's not bizarre. That's birth rate in South Korea is like 0.7. So there's a bunch of men who will never pass on their genes in the alpha male, beta male, whatever, like, in that kind of language, they talk a lot about like procreation and legacy and stuff like that. But I almost wonder, is there a mechanism in a human being that if your genes know they're dying out, what would they trigger in your mind? Right? And I think what they would
Revolution. Like that's kind of like the obvious answer. If men, a large group of men, young men, between the age of, young to 40, if people have more and more difficulty in society, like what's the purpose of society? A pretty important thing to give people in a society is the ability to reproduce, to pass on their genes, because we're animals. You can't rationalize that shit away. And now you see people are going absolutely insane when they don't have a shot at reproduction. And throughout history, things just go horrendously bad, like really bad, when things get too difficult, when the average age of marriage, or was it average age of like children born from a woman, exceeds a certain level, like 30-ish, when women start having kids at like around ish 30. That's like a good indicator that some kind of revolution or something is coming. So yeah.
Trigger is exactly what we're seeing. This like existential panic, angst, even aggression, entitlement. Because if these men do not behave in this way, they're literally going to die out. So what we see in this post-COVID world is that people like maybe you or me, who were like losers and didn't know how to talk to chicks in high school, we were forced into social interaction where we basically like that's where we developed in order to, so that we could talk to girls. But in this post-COVID world, all those spaces are gone. There's no forcible interaction. So then there are some people for whom it's natural to talk to girls. And that's why like we see this dichotomy where it's almost like, you know, some people like just put yourself out there, just work out, work on yourself and things will work out. And then there are a lot of other people who are like, that's not working. And I imagine if you went back like 200 years, went back to the Galapagos Islands and you took Darwin's finches and you put them on Twitter, you would see that exactly what we're seeing. Some people are like, oh, like you have trouble getting bugs? Just crack a nut. Like just get better at cracking nuts. But they have something in their makeup, something in their attachment style, something in their tendency for social anxiety, something.
Very, very positive way to put it. He does, but the truth is like the dating market has gotten horrendous, and I hope they get into social media and expectations between men and women towards each other. The right now, what has happened is because of social media, dating apps, Instagram, all that. What is happening with women is they have access to these top tier men in their mind. They can sleep with them, right? They can match them on Tinder or Hinge or whatever, Bumble, whatever dating app. They can match with them, or maybe even send a direct DM through Instagram and get access to these men. And what do these what do these men do? They have so much access to women that they smash they smash the women. And what happens is these women think because they sleep with the man that there's a chance at a relationship. That becomes their like base standard of expectations for a man. And of course they date hypergamously. So they will go after the tallest man they can get, who makes the most money, who is the most charismatic, who is the most this, who has the biggest pipe, who has you name it, bro. And what happens is they start to look at average men, good average men. You have a job, you're just average. But the thing is, that is hell in today's society. You don't get respect. Women look down on you. And of course, you have to think in the kind of political messaging they're getting with feminism. A lot of women don't really like men, if that makes sense. Like everything is completely flipped in every single social dynamic between men and women. Like you can't lead because then you're toxic, then you're controlling. You can't have standards. Uh, yeah, no wonder things are getting worse. But let's hear what he has to say.
Something in their neuroticism, something in their circumstances, something in their support structure that allows them.
Right, support. I forgot to mention the death of religion or God, community, and just in general, just social standards between people. Like women can be as degenerate as they want, and they expect to have that traditional out. Does that make sense? Like they can sleep around and rack up body count and be as promiscuous as possible, but in the end, they want to meet some, let's just say, beta or a simp or whatever you want to say, a weaker man that will accept that past. And there are a lot of men who do that. So when women figure out that they can do a lot of shit and kind of get away with it because they have like a backup loser to fall back on, uh, yeah, things things just continue to get worse. Now, as a man, if you want to have a proper woman, you know, all that feminine, sweet, whatever the fuck you look for in a woman, you don't find that in the West. The Western dating pool is dead. It's so toxic, and yeah, a lot of men are going overseas to find a woman, but even that window is closing because these ideas, this entire hive mind ideas are spreading. Social media, short form content. You can ask anyone who is living overseas and talking to younger women. This shit is spreading. So, yeah, I really wonder what the world is going to look like in a few years.
To put forth effort and in their support structure that allows them to put forth effort and succeed. And then there are these other people over here who will go to therapy, who will work on themselves professionally, who will show up on dating apps. And because of the shape of their face, which cannot be fundamentally altered, or some other thing which they're not even aware of, they grew up with a certain attachment style that they're not aware of. They grew up with on the spectrum, and their capacity to make eye contact and emotional connections is very difficult. So there's this whole crop of people who I think are trying really hard. I don't think they're losers. I don't think they're like pathetic or anything like that. I think there's something about the architecture of how these people are built so that standard advice does not apply to them. And what I feel when I sit with these people is like someone who is dying out. Like that's what it feels like to sit with. This person's life, they're not living a life. They're in a slow, protracted process of dying. And when you are in a slow, protracted process of dying, pornography shows up. And then you've got this weird thing that goes on where you get this spurt of dopamine, this existential dread of like, I am not getting to participate in life. There are all these people out there that are participating. They tell me, oh, you should do this, but it doesn't work. And it's just imagine how terrifying it is. If someone gives you advice that's supposed to work and it doesn't work for you, how fucked are you? Right? Because that's the answer. It's like some people have cancer, we give them cancer treatment, they get better. But if some people have cancer and everyone's like, hey, do this chemotherapy, and it doesn't work, then how screwed are you? You're very screwed. So this is, I think, what we're seeing, this deep existential loss, this desire for connection is somehow like intersecting with pornography. Because I think pornography addiction has a spiritual component too. And if you talk to people who are addicted to pornography, they can feel it. They feel like spiritually like empty. They're like, I'm not doing anything with my life. So one of the two variables that correlates with pornography addiction, the two strongest variables that correlate with pornography addiction, one of them is a sense of meaninglessness in life. And there's a weird spiritual angle that I talked about, but the other.
Yeah, stop gooning. It's horrendous for you. And one other thing is the death of friendship, brotherhood. Now, I think that is a horrendous thing that has happened. Is now friendship is so weak for a lot of men. A lot of men are completely alone, isolated. They have no friends, and there are some men and and women who put too much pressure on their man, on their woman, to meet all these criteria, which otherwise would have gone to your friends or friend group or uh, girlfriends if you're a woman. It's before it was like you're a man, you're a woman, you come together, you have your roles, and things were kind of more spread out. But now, because everybody is so alone, want all these things in just one person, where otherwise it would have gone to your friends, your brotherhood. And I think it's very sad that men view, there are a lot of men who think having good, strong male bonds is somehow gay. I think that is one of the worst things you can think. I just do not understand it. uh, but yeah.
The really simple thing is, if you want to stop watching porn, you need to have a reason to stop watching porn. And the problem with porn is that you can be kind of like living your life, and then in the in-between hours when you're like back from work and before you go on a date, or maybe you're swiping on Tinder and no one's really answering or whatever, like you just have these hours in the day where there's nothing going on, you're not living for anything, so you might as well jerk off.
I mean, there's a lot that I'm thinking about. The first is, if we go back up to your point about this being a bit of an extinction event, it poses a question about like, what do you do about that?
Mm-hmm.
You said also people are trying to implement the advice, but it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does that mean that that's a question of like motivation, discipline? Is it bad advice? What do we do there? And
It's I mean, it's mostly what I see is women don't view men I guess the way they used to. The thing is now, because they enter the workforce and they start making their own money, they're these strong boss babes. They look at men, average men, with contempt. It's the more money they make, the fewer dating prospects they have because of hypergamy. They want to date at the same level or higher. So if they make, the more money they make, the less of the size of their dating pool shrinks for these women, and they start to kind of get angry at men, right? Because they end up alone. They start getting older and older, making more and more money. They're just kind of making it worse for themselves, if that makes sense. And yeah, it's like a pyramid. It's like the higher you go as a woman on up on the pyramid, the less viable options, or like the less options you have to find a suitable man to satisfy hypergamy with, and to kind of live that blissful, feminine, happy woman life, if that makes sense. And even if you're an average dude and you do get a woman by, simping and giving out money and kind of being the walking wallet, you get no respect. The woman doesn't have true, like, raw attraction to you. And yeah, there's many other things, but let's continue.
Third, I guess, question that comes to mind: what do we do there? And the third, I guess, question that comes to mind is: does society have a responsibility to intervene in some way to correct this?
So I think, does society have a responsibility? I don't think that is a real thing. So I have never seen society take a responsibility. I don't think society can take a responsibility, right? So if like how do I get society? Like, who do I talk to?
But if you think about other people that are in marginalized groups, society intervenes to make the
Who is
world,
society?
the governments, and the way that we make our laws, and the way that we give out money and grants, and the way that we shape our communities.
Yeah, so I understand the question, but I think like this, and this is just the way that I think. So if I ask you what is society, you say the government. And then who is the government? What is the government? It's people.
Yeah.
So I think this comes down to, forget about societal responsibility. And I think this is one of the problems, not to say that it is the problem, but this is just the way that I think. There was a case, I don't remember her name, of a woman who's being sexually assaulted in public, like on a street at nighttime. And there were a bunch of neighbors who were like aware that the sexual assault was happening, and no one called for help. And the reason no one called for help is because everyone assumed that somebody else would call for help. Whose problem is it? Oh, society should fix this. And the moment that we say society should fix this, we stop taking individual responsibility. And the moment that we stop taking individual responsibility, like, unless someone shows up and runs
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised what he just said. I never heard about it, but I'm not surprised because kind of before you would act in a certain way as a man and you would get, respect, or it would be like honor, to be a certain way. But now it's like, yeah, a woman gets assaulted on the street or in a bush, in a park somewhere. It's like, it's not surprising to me that some men kind of just look at that with contempt. They're just like, ah, whatever. Uh, because you grew up your entire life without ever um, being appreciated or valued for anything at all. And I mean, yeah, I mean, you want the benefits of, if the world or women or society wants the benefits of men and masculinity, there needs to be some incentives. And the same thing with relationships, or between men and women. There has to be like the correct incentives. You actually try and you get one of these modern Western women. What do you get? You get a covert feminist that kind of is at war with you every second during the relationship, always questioning your say, always talking back to your decisions, never fully submitting and letting the relationship flourish. There always must be some kind of combative nature there. And yeah, the culture, and ever since childhood, you're being primed. These women are being primed to kind of be more like men, and men are becoming more like women. Since childhood, since school, you're told to, sit still and be a good girl, basically, and not use your energy, and don't talk, and don't do this and don't do that, and eventually it wears you down as a man, growing up like that.
For office and individual responsibility, like unless someone shows up and runs for office and says, my goal is to do this, which by the way is happening in like South Korea. So like conservatives that are very like, there's this huge tension in South Korea right now between men and women, and this 4B movement where women are like, we're not going to have kids anymore. And then there's like this conservative kind of like pro-masculine kind of movement that is moving into government and says like, this needs to change. And we see governments responding to this mating crisis.
I think if men change and become stronger, women automatically, just automatically adapt and change with that. So the problem today is there's too many weak men. A lot of men, they blame women for the way they behave and the way they act, and all these expectations like, oh, you gotta buy me an Uber and pay for the dinner and pay my rent and all this shit. It's the reason they have these expectations is because weak men do that for them. And again, with like the set standards, just as they sleep with men who now they think they are deserving of, just because they sleep with them. The same thing happens with the bills and like the expectations, financial expectations they have, is because there's losers who do pay, right? So if everybody just stops paying for this shit, women will adapt. They'll start acting more like women. But that's maybe a little bit too positive of thinking from me. I'm I'm not. I think things are gonna get worse, but as long as you stay focused as a man and you continue to build yourself through just strength in general, financial strength, physical strength, learn to fight, continue to get your value up, and you'll have more choice. You won't just be stuck with the Western dating pool and having to pick from this garbage or this slightly less smelly garbage. You'll actually have real choices.
Right. So I think like China is now paying people to have children. So there's all kinds of like moves that are happening. So is it society's responsibility? Like, I don't know. So I think if society doesn't do anything, what's going to happen will be really.
If nothing happens, I mean, there's things potentially can get very bad. Because what do people have to lose? Realistically, I mean, look at just the incentives. Look at how things are just. Look at how the pieces are coming together. Like, now you have more and more men who have no property, they have no woman, they have no legacy, no children, they get no respect. They're actively shunned and looked down upon. They're spit on by society, and they have no friends, no brotherhood. Common sense people, like, well, what do you think happens if large amounts of group, if large amounts of men start to group up and start asking the big questions of, why is it like this? Like, can we change this? You will never, ever, you're an idiot if you think that you can talk your way out of this, or vote your way out of this, I should say also. I'm a human. I am pretty decent at knowing human nature. You will never talk your way out of this at convincing people that it's okay to not leave a legacy or not have a shot at having children. Good luck with that. Your society will burn down if nothing happens and you continue to be worse and worse and worse. Or the only way this changes without blood getting spilled, I mean, that is to change the system internally. I should say the political system. That is to, kind of create a party that is, right now it is like red or blue. It doesn't matter. Things just continue to get worse. So changing it internally would be an option, but it's less likely than the first one.
Really simple, and that's what I mean by we're. So I think if society doesn't do anything, what's going to happen will be really simple, and that's what I mean by we're witnessing a mass extinction event. We have a group of young men who are somewhere between.
Yeah, but you think these men are just gonna let it happen? Like, this is the thing. You have to ask these questions. Do you think these men will just roll over and just boom, they're gone, extinct? No, they will go out with a bang.
15 to 50 who will just never procreate. And then they will literally die out, right? Their genes will not be passed on. And for the people who do procreate, they will have been adapted to the post-COVID world.
Yeah.
Right? So they know how to form, they succeed on Tinder. Whereas like if you go and you look at like, if you go to like some kind of senior event and you look at all the people who have grandkids, half the men there would not have succeeded on Tinder.
Yeah.
Right? And this is something that really like shocks people when I kind of tell them this, but if you want to see like who's succeeding, it's not the dudes on Tinder who are getting laid 15 times. Like go to like I mean, this is sometimes a little creepy, but like if you go to a playground, you're going to see like a lot of like average looking men with like average looking dad bods, with average median incomes who are like having kids. And that's what's really happening. But even those men are adapted in some way, right? Because they're not exceptionally attractive, they're not exceptionally rich, but they have something going on in their psychological makeup which allows them to form bonds and procreate.
You just said that a huge amount of men between the age of 15 and 50 will not pass on their genes. They will effectively die out of the gene mating pool. So people will hear that and...
There is a strategy, but I would not recommend it. And that is to be basically a weak man. That is to satisfy the woman's every whim and just put your hands together and hope and pray that she gives you 1 or 2 kids, and that's it. That's like the Western dating strat. I don't want that, and I think a lot of other men don't want that either. They don't want to be the woman's bitch.
And many people will go, well, that's evolution.
Yeah.
But I want to understand if there's a counterpoint to that. Should society intervene? Why is, in the short term, we're going to have a lot of men who are disillusioned, that become incels, find themselves in pockets of the internet, are resentful, all those kinds of things. But should society intervene to course correct that? Should we put systems in place to make sure that those men meet partners?
I'm gonna answer that question with a question.
Okay.
If, let's say, A huge swath of people are dying out from cancer.
Yeah.
Should we intervene with that?
Yes.
If a huge swath of people are dying out from like a virus, should we intervene with that?
100%. Yes.
If a huge swath of people are dying out from genocide, should we intervene with that?
Yes.
So I think there are two important things. One
It's
is
slightly
that
different though, isn't it?
it
Because
is.
it's
So,
whether you.
so one is about death,
Yeah.
right? So one is like if a human being is dying,
Mhm.
we should step in. But natural selection isn't necessarily about death. This is what's really tricky about it. This is why I think it gets hard. Natural selection is about passing on your genes,
Yeah.
right? It's about creating viable offspring. And this is where if someone, and I think we also say yes, like if there's, a couple that wants to have a child and that child has cystic fibrosis, should we help that couple? Should we help a couple procreate? We also say yes.
Yeah.
So that's why we have IVF and things like that. So I think that the tricky thing about the reason that this is different is because that's a couple. If a woman is unable to have kids, even if we say if a man is unable to have kids, should we medically intervene so that they're capable of having kids? Yes. Right? So if we're talking about a couple, if we're talking about a human being and there's a medical problem, or if we're talking about protecting people from death, the answer is yes. This is a new question, which is, do people have the right, and I don't know if right is, maybe that's the right word, to reproduce? And this is what's so challenging about it is like the answer is basically no, because for
Create a society where your people can't reproduce. Yeah, good luck with that. Like, I'm not, like, bro, you do that and it's like GG. Like, like how many years until everything burns down? You think people are like just naturally like civilized like that? Like, bro, we're barbarians, bro.
men, this is what's so challenging about it is like the answer is basically no, because for men, that requires the consent of someone else. And my right to reproduce never trumps someone's right to not want to reproduce with me.
Yeah.
I think we sort of accept that, right? That's correct. Now, this is where the fundamental biological difference comes in, because a woman doesn't need a man to reproduce. I can go to a sperm bank. And once again, you can argue that you can get laid if you want to, but
Yeah. But the thing is, women want security. They want that security, that help, that relationship, that good dynamic between men and women. They want a woman. They want a man that takes care of them, and all that. The thing is, like, like, what is this dude advocating for? Single mothers, or like this is like nightmare scenario. Like, don't do that. And what? Like, I'm trying to think about the logic here. Like, what? Women just say no men, because I have all these expectations because of dating apps and my history and all that shit. My expectations are shot. I've been pumped and dumped too many times by chads. Average men don't cut it anymore. So what now? You impregnate them through sperm banks, and what? Men become tax slaves to pay for these single mothers when you could have just paired them up and let them have families. And like, bro, men are not gonna become tax slaves for if you don't even give them a shot at reproduction, at something to protect, legacy, something to take care of. This is the problem. Society is creating these men that have nothing to fight for. So why not risk it all? Like, these are the questions they ask themselves. That's why you have more and more men starting to do just horrendous, heinous shit.
that hasn't been my experience. I think women struggle with loneliness and finding sexual partners and stuff quite a bit as well. There's some really bad perception on the internet. So I think this is like a new problem for society, which is why it hasn't been solved. Now, that's why the track that I take, I don't know what the societal answer is. I'm not a sociologist. So what I have found, thankfully,
Sociology is bullshit.
don't need to solve, or I don't think we need to solve that problem. Does it need to be solved? Sure. Should someone solve it? I think so. But I think what I found works really well is that usually the problem that these men are failing to adapt to can be fixed. But the problem is that the solutions that work.
I think the entire structure is fucked. The thing is, you will always be looked at as like that man, the provider. All women want that provider. Women make money, but they want a man who makes equal or more than them. Like, how the fuck does that make sense in a structure now we have nowadays? And you will not get any empathy or sympathy or whatever the fuck. Like, the thing is, the world is just gonna continue to get more shit. So, kind of just spinning back to what I said earlier. Find men, find good, strong men, and group up. That's one of the reasons I made this channel. So I wanna do that and create something like that, because the world is just gonna continue to get harder, and people are gonna continue to get poorer. This also, like, the boomers, they I mean, they could like buy a house for like $2. Like, they could buy a house and provide for a woman. A woman could stay home and they could just pump out kids. But now things are just getting more and more financially difficult for people, and the human animal is getting more and more stressed with these conditions that we are living in. So, yeah.
For the people who are successful will that the solutions that work for the people who are successful will not work for the people who are unsuccessful. These are apples and oranges, right? So like, and this is the big mistake, is that when I say, okay, I am happily married with 2 kids, but the thing that I did won't work for these people. That's been my clinical experience. My advice does not work for them. Your advice won't work for them. What we need is a different system.
Yeah, the shit you get now is just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Yeah, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Work harder. Like, what are you complaining about, bro? Alright, bro. If these boomers had any idea what you have to go through today as a young man, I mean, fuck. I do believe that actually men, or men like me, or kind of men today who have adapted slightly to the shit, are better off than what the boomers would have been in the same situation, because they were complete simps. Like, you don't understand how much these boomers were simps, bro. It started with them, bro. They were like the first, like, weak, soft people. It's like it's fucking insane. I wonder, the people before them, the greatest generation, was it? I mean, those dudes were like next level. Like, they are what I hope Gen Z men are going to be. I do believe that shit just goes in cycles, man. It's like greatest generation, and then boomers, they were weak as fuck, simps, and then now you have this like uprising of Gen Z men, young men, who kind of see the world for what it is, and they look through all the fucking distractions and all the like words and like fugazi bullshit they throw at you, and they just look at reality, and they just look at outcomes. And yeah, I do have hope for brotherhood, masculinity, a little bit, but there's also the other side of weak men that are just exploding. They continue to delve deeper into pornography and degeneracy. They continue to become weaker and weaker.
That addresses their fundamental problems, right? Because I had what it takes internally. I was loved as a child. Like this is how deep it runs. So I knew how to give love and receive love. A third of the men that I meet do not know how to give love and do not know how to receive love. Has nothing to do with their Tinder profiles. That's why they're fucked. And when people can say, go to the gym, make more money, but if you do not know how to fundamentally give or receive love, then like that's a huge.
Dating apps are so fucking garbage. Like, honestly, like, you see it. Women are, I mean, they're brutal with that shit. It started off with a joke with the height filter, but now it's like, yeah, that shit became reality. Now they filter with height. I mean, what they're gonna filter with next? It's like, body fat percentage, maybe, the size of your pipe, maybe. I don't know how dystopian this shit will become, but before it was simpler, if that makes sense. I'll explain why. Before it wasn't the internet. Like, not everything was connected. Not every fucking woman had Instagram and they could like fry their brain. And before it was like, if you were in a group setting, let's say you were running. Let's take that for example. The goal was to run fast with a good time. And let's say you had a bunch of men and some women, or a bunch of women, and you were the man who ran the fastest. You were the winner in that group scenario. What that does is the women see this shit and they're like, oh, he's the winner. He's the top man in this group, in this scenario. That tingles my hypergamy a little bit. It's like, that is the winner. That is the fastest man. I want that man because every other woman wants that man. And now, because of social media, I mean, bro, this shit has gone global. You're fucked. Your local village girl is getting DMs from some Dubai dude with a yacht. Your 19-year-old village girl is getting a DM on her Instagram if she's pretty enough, and she will get flown out to Dubai and other places. Like, this is the type of stuff men don't think about. But that's just kind of like the brutal reality you have to accept. Is yeah. I mean, I don't know. That's why I've been saying, like, the most important thing to look for in a woman today in a modern world. Fuck piercings, fuck that tattoos, fuck everything, even family, even if she has a father, all this shit. No, the biggest monstrosity that has come out of this is social media use. You have to look for that. Is the most absolute most important thing to look for in a woman. Social media use. What relationship does she have with social media? Does her attitude or opinions on things change on a whim because of a one short or one TikTok or one Instagram post she sees? Does her mood shift? It's like, is she a brainless NPC essentially? Just some advice. Hope this helps.
Huge problem.
Is that where you
Do not know how to fundamentally give or receive love, then like that's a huge problem.
is that where you start when you're trying to solve this on an individual basis?
Yeah, so I mean, I start giving and receiving love is not where I start, because that's like so foreign to them that they don't know how to do that.
Okay.
Right. So I think there are a couple of things. The first place that I start with most men is in understanding their emotions. So we have all kinds of patterns that we engage in that are driven by different parts of us that we have no insight into. And usually this is like where the money is. So I had a great conversation yesterday with a buddy of mine, and he gave me this fantastic example, which I've seen so many times. So there's a lot of women will talk about men who are afraid of commitment.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, like, I'm dating this person, he's great, but he's afraid of commitment. He's afraid of commitment. And then it kind of becomes like, oh, like the dude is like, he like needs to step up and needs to like be a man and needs to like learn how to commit. So we sort of put the onus on the man. You're afraid of commitment. You need to fix that. It's a really funny.
They never look at themselves. Like, are you good enough to be committed to? Like, are you that woman? And usually they're not. You just blame the men. It's like, oh, you don't commit. It's like, you're basically like a dude. Like, you're not a, like, in these men's eyes, with the options they have, they don't. I wondered, like, they're not happy themselves. Like, the thing is, you think these dudes on Tinder, like, they're fucking happy smashing all these women. I think a lot of them get fucking ice cold seeing how women operate and how they think. And they're in the same pool as you, basically. Although maybe they can get a better looking Western woman, but it's still a Western woman with in-baked, that like feminism, that like kind of like man hatred is still there. It's just Yeah.
Is if you look at like women that I've worked with, they sort of fall into this pattern where they date men who are afraid of commitment. And that's why they're looking for commitment, because they haven't found it yet, right? And so the really funny thing is sometimes women will select for a man who is afraid of commitment because deep down they're afraid of commitment.
So true.
So I'm going to find someone who I know is afraid of commitment, and therefore I can blame them for never committing. And this is how I know this, because sometimes the dude will come into my office and he will work on his fear of commitment and he will conquer it. And the moment that he
This deviated a little. This was about men who kind of don't get women, and now he's talking about a dude who has clearly options of getting women. He's getting female attention, but now like I'm just thinking about the dudes who just have no shot at all. Fuck, get no matches on dating apps, zero. Uh,
conquers his fear on commitment, the woman will retreat. They'll get terrified. They'll start to find all kinds of problems. And it's not just like men, and it's not just women are guilty of this. So there are all kinds of patterns that people will engage in that they have no insight into. First of all, understand your emotions, then you will understand your behaviors. Oh, like, why do I keep on selecting people who are afraid of commitment? Because I'm afraid of commitment. And if I can find somebody else who's afraid of commitment, I can blame them from it. And I never have to deal with my laddering up my fear of commitment. So there's a lot of stuff that comes with emotion. So awareness of emotions, awareness of your patterns, the ability to regulate them. And I'd say that kind of ties it up.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge...
Men aren't giving up. They're just not taking bad deals anymore. Yeah, a lot of men say the juice is not worth the squeeze anymore. 10 years ago, it was. 10 years ago, it was. That's not happening. You're crazy. 3 years ago, it was. It's happening, but nowhere near as bad as you think. We're now halfway to it's happening and you deserve it. Rather than asking 10 to 15 men from the demographics we're actually talking about, turning to so-called experts for answers. And all the news stations, talk shows, and YouTube channels keep speculating, pretending their opinions actually mean something. It's like we're not even trying to find real answers anymore. We just want to hear ourselves talk rather than asking questions to people we're discussing. Yeah, you see it all the time. There's like major problem with like male loneliness or masculinity crisis that is happening, or just spiritual crisis in society today. And it's like on men's issues, you would bring out a panel with full of bitter older women that just trash on men for 40 minutes or 50 minutes or an hour while they're on. It's a clown show. I ended a relationship a week ago as it was getting stale, argumentative, and she told me she would never take my surname if we married. Wouldn't necessarily want kids, wouldn't post a picture of us on her Instagram. In other words, keeping her options open. I see no reason to keep that relationship going. Like, this is the thing, bro. Like, argumentative, always like talking. Like, you can never catch. I mean, not that you're supposed to kind of like relax ever, but like, you can never like, how do I explain it? You're never like happy. Like, you'll never be happy with these women. Not that like happiness is something to kind of strive for, but you're never like at peace. These women, they are always, uh, sooner or later, they become a part, a piece of the problem, not a part of the peace in your life. And a lot of dudes are like, okay, shit, like this shit is just not worth it. Like I was less stressed and more at peace being alone than with a combative woman like that. Uh, uh, Not to be worth it nails it for me. My last breakup was real horrible, and by the end I realized I was walking on so many eggshells that I had no rights, and somehow I was the villain. Plus, it's not the first time something like this, like that, happened. I don't hate the other gender or even my exes, but I'm tired. Relationships were a horrible experience for me, and I don't want to do that anymore. And yet again, nothing about women needing to change their behavior. Over 50%, no, over 50% of this problem relates to the unrealistic expectations of women and the lack of appreciation for men through social conditioning. Yeah, I mean, feminism and all that shit. Like, again, I don't believe. I still stand firm on my what I said. It's weak, man. Women are what they are. Like, you're not gonna, you can't, yeah, like what, negotiate attraction with them or what they want. It just is what it is. Which, maybe it's not what you want to hear, but it is what it is. um, Men get stronger, things will get better. Cause I'm sick and tired of these weak ass fucking men. Oh, it's gay to have brotherhood. It's like, yeah, bro. Having men you would fucking take a bullet for, like that's gay, right? Shut the fuck up. I meet men all the time. It's like they don't even have friends. They can have like giant friend groups in like college or whatever the fuck, but all they do is just dick around, drink and do drugs or fuck all, and they're never like happy. Does that make sense? Like, they never find that like true brotherhood that is possible, that has existed. It can be done, but it has to be done. It is difficult. It is. You have to go through, I believe, building bonds between men. The best way to do this is physical activity. It is. You go through something physically strenuous or difficult or stressful or whatever the fuck together to build that bond. You will never create that good brotherhood gaming 10 hours a fucking day on Discord. No. I do believe that fighting or hiking, doing anything fucking physical, I don't know, kayaking, rock climbing, you do that shit with other men, and bonds, strong bonds can be built through that. So yeah. Let's read some more comments and end it. This is this is how I feel. No matter how hard you work, no one guarantees success, so you just keep living on. Do you know the saddest reality beneath all the cuteness of everything? I live in the UK. Oh no. Oh no. Here you often see Indian migrant couples on low wages, husband and wife, getting on a bus together at 5 a.m. to head to work or returning home together. Both are average in height, appearance, and everything else, regardless of culture swirling around them. These Asian couples simply get on with life. There doesn't seem to be any concept of hypergamy. I come to realize that the whole conversation, the one that we keep hearing about relationships, is a lie. In truth, the population is roughly 50% men and 50% women. If we genuinely want to make things work, we easily could. The problem is half of us believe that only 10% of men are husband material, and the other half, the men, aren't willing to settle for women who've been ran through. So the only solution I can think of is this: men need to keep working on themselves, their character, their emotional intelligence, and seek brides abroad who haven't been damaged so they can build healthy families with them. Meanwhile, women will keep working, keep chasing the 10% and keep having children without fathers. Dysfunctional children who will grow up as economic migrants in their own home countries, forever at the back and call of the rich and of those who come from intact, stable family structures until they finally die out. Mm. Yeah, but the thing is, this shit is spreading. As I said, like in I would say max like 8, 10, 15 years, like this shit is gonna be dead. Like you won't find that good traditional woman anymore overseas. 60% of men now realize that the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I'll end it on that one. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I catch you boys on the next one. Take care of yourself.